So today I'm grateful for being able to record this podcast.
Absolutely. And I'm grateful to be a guest on the podcast.
Thank you.
I've never been a guest on a podcast before.
Oh, well, MCs are usually the ones who interview others.
Exactly.
So it's always the first time for them.
Yeah.
That's why I got the idea of the show. That MCs are always the ones talking to other people.
Yeah.
Why does no one ever talk to MCs?
It's such a lonely life.
We need to know the stories behind the people who make everyone's life better at every event, right?
True. Yeah, I suppose when you put it like that, sometimes I never realize how important a role of an MC is. For example, sometimes when I'm hired for a job, I'll kind of look at the script and my parts throughout the evening. I'm thinking, that's such a small thing. Sometimes I'll literally come on, say one line to introduce the next person and then go. And I'm thinking, surely they don't need to pay someone for that, or they could just do it themselves. But no, they can't, or they don't want to. And when you're there, you realize how important that role is to keep the evening together.
I think the only time you realize the importance of an MC is when you go to an event that does not have an MC.
Oh my goodness. Or you go to an event that has a bad MC.
Yeah, that's even worse.
I actually do believe that's even worse than no MC. I've been to a lot of events before I got into MCing and since, and you just, it's difficult. And I don't just mean in terms of maybe you don't necessarily like their MCing style, but you're talking about perhaps that they don't look the part, or they're unprepared, or they're literally reading word for word from their cue cards and not lifting anything from the page. So there's quite.
Yeah.
Do I sound bad saying that already?
No. I think actually, because that's one of the questions, and I think in order to be a good MC, you need to know what a bad MC does or doesn't do.
True.
So that you wouldn't be able to do it. But before we start, can you tell us more about yourself? Where are you from? How long have you been in Dubai? How did you end up moving to Dubai in the first place? What's your story?
What's my story? Okay, so I moved to Dubai in 2008. And I was made redundant in the UK. I was in real estate for 10 years in the UK, and I was made redundant. And I'd been working since I was 16. I didn't go to college or university. I've been in full-time work as an estate agent, in real estate that whole time. And then, of course, the global market crash in 2008. So I lost my job. And it's a very weird story because two of my brothers already lived in Dubai. And I wanted to come out and visit them, but I had less than 6 months left on my passport, and you need more than 6 months to travel to Dubai. So I'd been made redundant, and the next day I was at home, and it was the first day I didn't have a job since I was 16. And it was a really weird feeling. And literally there was a knock on the door at about 9:30, because why am I in bed at 9:30? I don't have a job. It was so weird. And it was the courier bringing my new passport. And so it meant I could travel to Dubai. So I was like, okay, I'll travel to Dubai. Shall I do that then? Let's just go on holiday. And then that day I also had to go back into my office to sign some paperwork and collect all my belongings. And I was driving back along a really slow road. I live on the coast, the seafront in the UK. And there was loads of traffic, and it was raining, and it was depressing, and it was ugh. And there was a huge billboard on the side of the road that just said, "Hello tomorrow, fly Emirates." And I sat there and I was looking at it in this traffic jam for ages. And I was like, I'm going to go. So I came out here for a week with my friend, and then stayed 5 weeks, got a job, went home for 6 weeks, sold everything, rented out my property, and then moved out here in 2008.
So it was almost like an instant decision.
Yeah.
You just saw the billboard when you came here and the sun was shining, it wasn't raining, and you're just like, I'm going to stay.
Yeah, I came here with the intention to see, could I live here? And obviously I was fortunate enough that I already had two of my brothers here. My two big brothers have been here since 2000 and 2005, something like that, 2002, 2005. And so, yeah, I did come here with the intention of seeing what it was like. And then I was never one of those people, I'm going to go for a year, I'm going to go for 2 years. No, it's home. Dubai is home now. So, yeah.
But you did not come looking for a job in radio or emceeing. Because
No.
you said you have such a nice radio voice.
Thanks. No, not at all. I actually fell into all of my jobs. So I was a radio presenter, I'm an MC and a voiceover, and they all came by accident, really. So I started off in real estate in the UAE, which was fun because I came here with my professionalism and my integrity and realized you don't need any of those things to do real estate in Dubai. So it didn't stay very long. I was working for a sports company locally here. You may have heard of them, called DoPlays. They're a community sports company, and we used to create, football teams and basketball teams, badminton, tennis, whatever. And we were invited onto Dubai Eye 103.8, their sports program called The Grill. And we were invited on to talk about sports in the community and, the obesity rates and diabetes and stuff in the UAE and how to get people active and moving. And I just hit it off really well with the panel, with the other presenters. And they said to me, we'd love to have, it was all male, we'd love to have a female voice on the sports show. And I said, well, I don't know too much about sports, the ins and the outs, not like boys do. Like boys remember sports so well. But I could do social media. So I said, look, I'll come back on and do like your Twitter. It was only really Twitter at the time, Twitter and Facebook messages and their SMSs.
That was before Instagram was a thing.
Before it was a real thing. This was 2012. Okay. And it was pro bono. They didn't have, they couldn't pay me. They didn't have a fee. And I was like, no, sure. So I just used to go and do that every Saturday for free, as you do when you start out. And then I was thinking, radio is my jam. I'm really down for this. And then just became really, really tenacious with the people at Dubai 92 because I love Dubai 92. And I was like, I want to be a radio presenter. I want to be a radio presenter. And then that story is a much longer story. It was really weird. I'd never done live radio before, and I covered the breakfast show on Dubai 92 for 2 weeks over Christmas.
How did you feel like coming in from real estate into radio? Were you scared at all?
Not really. No, I should have a much better story, but I wasn't. Initially, when I was asked, when I was asked to do that first cover shift, I said, I've never done live radio before. And she said, no, you'll have a producer who's pressing all the buttons, because when you walk into a radio studio, it's like, ground control, and you don't know what you're doing, when really there's probably like 3 buttons.
It's like this, but like 100 times more.
Yeah, buttons. Like your controller. And even that we had issues with walking in today. But someone was there to press the buttons, and I literally just had to talk about some stuff and then say, and here's Beyonce, and then hit the next button. So I just kind of went into it. You do have to prep a lot though. You can't just, wing it in radio.
Much like emceeing.
Yeah, which is what we were saying, because it's live. If you make a mistake or you and ah and you don't know what you're going to say, that's really awkward on stage or on air.
So how did you move from radio to being an MC? Are they related? Because a lot of MCs are radio presenters or TV presenters, which, do you believe being a radio presenter or a TV presenter, that's another question, qualifies you to be an MC and vice versa, or not necessarily? Because there's a lot of debate in the MC industry about that.
There's an interesting one, because I was listening to episode 1 of the podcast, and you guys were talking about it as well. I think it depends. Of course, they're interchangeable skills. I had quite an in-depth conversation with someone on Twitter, because they had said about a radio presenter, I won't name them, but a local radio presenter who was then hosting an event. And they were like, why is it always radio presenters, and why don't you just stick to what you're good at? And I thought, it's not as if she was a radio presenter and you'd asked her to represent you in court. Like it's quite a close thing to do. So the fact that they all use my voice. I'm a radio presenter, I'm an MC and a voiceover. So it's not like one I'm trying to perform surgery and one I'm doing an event. But so there are very much interchangeable skills, and I don't have an issue with that. However, there are some people who are naturally so good at radio. Incredible people that I know and peers of mine in the industry, put them on stage, i.e. with 1,000 people looking at you, pre-COVID, please come back, 1,000 people looking at you, and not having, because obviously when you're an MC on stage, you can't look at your script the whole time and have your eyes down. So I do know people that can't do that. And then equally, there are MCs, we were speaking about, you know, doing live radio. There are MCs that would no way be able to be a radio presenter at all. Because at least with MCs, you can kind of bounce off the crowd and you can have some, you know, you can leave some space, some air for reaction. Whereas obviously on the radio, you can't do that. That's dead air. So I do think they're interchangeable. Voiceover is another thing. So many radio presenters and MCs think they can be a voiceover, and then they try it and they go, oh, it's actually really difficult.
I did not know how hard it is doing a voiceover. I
Yeah.
thought I was just talking into a mic.
Nah, yeah.
Yeah. You have to kind of be able to act with your voice.
Yeah, so it's a very difficult one because there's the difference between saying MC cast with Awalid Osman to MC cast with Awalid Osman. You know, it's like all these different ones, and the amount of people that say we really want it conversational, and they don't. They just think that they want a conversational voiceover. So it's a strange one.
So how did you start becoming an MC? When was your first event? Was it from the radio or was it not from the radio?
No, not at all. I was working for a PR and events company called Darbo & Co. And I worked in events. I was in business development in events. I wasn't on the radio at this point. This was 2013. And we were hosting a huge event for a company here called Arkham. And it was a big financial event held at Meydan Hotel. And I don't deliver the events. It's one of those all hands on deck things during a big event. And next thing you know, our client ran up to the events manager, my colleague Dominique, and said, I don't have anyone to introduce the CEO. And he was really panicked by it because we had hundreds of people at this conference. I don't have anyone. And my colleague Dominique said, it's fine. It's Katie, would you do it? And I was like, sure, what do you need me to do? And he's like, just introduce him. Here's his name, here's his title. Can you then just let everyone know, you know, the run of the day? And I was like, sure. I was really confused why it seemed to be such a big deal. Like I said before, I didn't understand why this person couldn't do it or that person couldn't do it. Not really understanding how frightening it is for people. I mean, it's the second most stressful thing ever, public speaking. And that was it. So I got up and I did it. And he was so grateful. I cannot tell you how grateful this guy was. And I was thinking, people get paid for this? Here's my rate card. And then it was quite funny because the next year he asked me if I was available. And my colleague Dominique said, yeah, but she's actually become really quite professional and popular in the last year and she has a rate card. They were like, oh, but they still hired me. So that's good.
Oh, it was good.
Yeah.
At least you got paid twice for the last year.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you did this event,